Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Wolves Fancast. The season's now officially ended for Wolves, and we're kind of heading into the off season where all players get to go to Dubai or Margate or wherever they fancy going for their jollies. However, there is still one really crucial match that is happening at Molineux, which is the Wolves Fancast charity football match where we are raising money for Mind Mental Health charity. Um, for longer term listeners of the show and also ones who might be a little bit newer, we're really strong advocates for the Fancast in terms of talking about mental health and the impact that many within the Fancast circle have been impacted by it. And we've done a number of these over the years. And given the fact that we're raising money for a mental health charity, we're really keen to do another show in the build up for it. So the game's happening at the end of this week, actually, on Friday. I'm joined today by Dean, Josh, and Rachel from the Wolves Foundation. But before we kind of go into the meat of it all, Dean and Josh, are you looking forward to Friday?
Yes, in an answer.
Yeah.
I'm not lucky enough to have done it previously. So it is something that's on the bucket list, is to play on the hallowed turf per se. Josh is trying to big me up a little bit as some kind of prime kind of Kevin Doyle kind of regen. So I've got that to live up to. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I think raising the money as well, we're at like pushing £2,000 now. So we're already at like a pretty good level. But I think I've got a couple of things lined up I want to try and push over the next few days to try and get that through the £2,000 mark.
Yeah. I mean,
I can't wait. I only keep calling Dean like Tommy, like Kevin Doyle, because he's going to do all that running up front for us. All them balls that I'm just going to stick over the top, mate. Going to have to get on the end of them. But no, I can't wait. Obviously, last year, really privileged to have played. What an experience it was. Can't wait to do it again this year. But this time we need to win. This time it's about winning. But no, I can't wait. And like I say, it does raise such massive amounts of money for such a great cause, and what some of the things people have done is really incredible. It just shows how tight knit the fan base and we are as friends and things like that as well.
Yeah, I think the fact you I know Dean, you've raffled off a pair of football boots. Ed's raffled off a '90s Wolves top. Jafo is going Romania 1998 and beach blonde dyeing his hair. So as of time of recording, so we're on Tuesday evening at this point. We're at 1700. So kind of a few days to go, still kind of lots of opportunities. The link is in the description if you are listening to us and sort of you want to sort of check it out. Again, you don't have to donate big amounts. I always kind of look in the perspective sometimes, even if you can donate, £3 or £4 and cut, the difference between having a pint on Friday and or kind of giving it to a worthy cause is how I've always looked at it. But yeah, should be a great occasion. Really looking forward to it. So feel free to check out if you can do. But it's the reason why we are doing it is to raise money for Mind Mental Health charity. And I sort of mentioned that it's something that's kind of quite dear to a lot of people's hearts. And as I know, I've done at least one of our It's Time to Talk series before, and I think it might have even been the first one. I know we've kind of done about 2 or 3, as pretty much one a year sort of since then. And again, I'll sort of just pick on Dean first, no pressure, mate. But I guess why it's important to have these kind of wider conversations, and let's be honest, we're a football podcast, but I don't know. It's always felt like something that's really resonated with a lot of people, and Dean and Josh, you've kind of been doing more of a fan cast stuff this season in particular. And I guess before we kind of get into the meat of it and learning, bringing Rachel at some point as well in terms of what the foundation are doing, some of the fantastic work they're doing. Dean, I was just sort of kind of keen to hear your thoughts. Really, start with that off.
Yeah, I think the blessing with football and is it connects people of all backgrounds, all cultures, all academic levels, all kind of personal levels. But within the fancast as well, if you look at the fancast group, we're all very different, but we all have that one thread that connects us all, which is football and which is Wolves. So there's a few people within the fancast kind of group that I'm closer to than others that I knew that kind of led me into the fancast world. But it's kind of people are always going through something, and that support framework is so important. And sometimes it's good to put yourself outside your normal friendship group to speak to someone that's not necessarily your stereotypical friend, but someone that you actually can resonate with. Like, look at the age difference between me and Josh. That over the past kind of 18 months or so, like you've got so close around not just football, it's everything else that kind of comes with it. You know that you can build that kind of support network that's away from your normal support network. So sometimes it's a bit better to be more open with those people because you know they've been through it or they've gone through something similar, and you don't that feeling of being judged by people closer to you sometimes is a bit of a stigma. So if you speak to someone that's not within your inner circle but they're in your wider circle, that could come across, that is easier to have a conversation per se sometimes. But that's kind of the main thing around kind of football and the fancast and how the mental health intertwines it for me. That's my kind of take from it.
No, that's really interesting, and I think you're right but there's a number of people who are involved in the fancast these days, and like me and Stu joke about it all the time, how me and him couldn't be completely different, but we have these sort of really odd similarities that just kind of bind us together, and having that, I guess, sort of different support base. And it really struck me, gosh, it would have been about 5 years ago now, when we kind of first considered doing a show like this, where it's like it kind of came out of woodwork, and I cannot remember which. It might have been Adam Price, and I'm not kind of outing him here because he has done these shows, but he sort of mentioned that he'd been really struggling, whatever, and it kind of literally sort of started this ripple effect where it's like, don't worry about it because I've kind of done, I've kind of been going through some stuff as well. And, hopefully people listening to this or watching it on YouTube, etc., some of the stuff we talk about might resonate with you really. And, whether it's kind of us from the fan cast, or I guess some of the stuff that I now get to my lovely link into Rachel now. So we've got Rachel Smith from the Wolves Foundation with us today, who do a lot of projects across the Wolverhampton community, and in particular sort of aspects around sort of mental health as well. I really should be selling it far better than I am, considering I work with the Wolves Foundation for my actual day job. So I'm going to sort of pass it over to Rachel now to go. Would you be able to give hello and welcome first and foremost? And would you sort of give us a bit of an overview of the foundation?
Yes, definitely. I think you've done a great job, to be fair, Rich. But
I'll have to let Kieran know.
So obviously the foundation, we're the charity of the football club, but we are an independent charity ourselves. So our main aim is to work within the community of Wolverhampton, like you said. We kind of work across 3 pillars. So it's around encouraging healthier, more active people, lifelong learning and skills, and safer and stronger communities. And my kind of area is all around health and well-being. So that's everything from physical health, mental health, from birth all the way up to older adults and everything in between, really. So I think we came on the fancast probably might have been 4 years ago, talking about Head for Health, which is our main mental health provision for adults. And yeah, it's still going strong. It first started when Wolves were promoted back up into the Premier League. So we're lucky that we can access some of that funding. So yeah, still going.
Wow, amazing. And I think I found it fascinating when I've kind of had the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the foundation, because like you're a club's official charity, but you're not necessarily the club. if that makes sense. And I think there's like this kind of bit of illusion that, it's kind of, walls in the community, so to speak. But it's very much kind of driven by the foundation, in terms of, it's not like you get sort of the backing of, a cut of Fabio Silva's wages, unfortunately.
No, we don't. So yeah, all of our funding comes from external sources. So we are very lucky because we're attached to the football club. We do get a lot of support from the Premier League Charitable Fund, but then we do get there's other funding streams that come in. So we do get funding through like the NHS, for example. Might be some through like crime commissioning money. It might be external sources. So part of Kieran's role, I know, Kieran, obviously links that you have is around bringing in like unrestricted funding. So then obviously we can build new projects, grow new things. So we have kind of a much larger like business development fundraising side now than we've ever had. So the foundation has gone through a lot of growth over the last few years. And it's really good, to be honest, as to what we can now do within the community. And obviously our mental health provision is something that we want at the forefront of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know, I appreciate we're raising money for a different organisation on Friday, but kind of for two intertwined, I know kind of the foundation really big beliefs in kind of collaboration with other charities. And Dean, I know, is it one or two of the sleep outs you've done?
Yeah, I've done two now. And one of the things I was going to jump in at one time is to see that in action. That's the most powerful bit of the whole night for me, is when you get the people are upstage either with the Good Shepherd or with the foundation or both, and you hear the messages of kind of the impact that it's making, and you see the difference that the charities are doing, and what the foundations, how it's making people better. Like, it's all fun and games to go and spend a night in the Molineux, and you've got the stuff around that, and yeah, it's good stuff, but that's the bit that you kind of take away from the night, where it gives you that invigoration to be, okay, these people fight this every single day. I can do it for a night. Like, it's raining, but it doesn't matter. I'll put that extra tenner in. I'll do that extra bit of running to maybe raise a bit more money or something along those lines. It gives you that motivation. And when you hear it, it really puts everything into perspective of how much difference and impact the foundation actually makes. And even little things like, you wouldn't think twice about kind of one of the incentives that the foundation does is that walking around West Park as like a group of new dads, for example. Like something like for me, with like 9 years ago when I first had my daughter, I'm like, you're brand new to all this kind of stuff. Luckily, my wife's amazing and I've got a support function around me. But if you didn't, having that ability there to just go and have a little walk for 5-10 minutes for other blokes in your situation, and I know they do the same with women, and then go have take the buggies with them and go for a walk around West Park and stuff like that, and people have that chat, and it's just that bringing people together, increasing that feeling of support. It just makes so much difference, and it actually, even though it's not the club, it's still something that you feel proud of as a fan. Like, I know we're going to get onto the Reepa stuff, but to see the stuff that the foundation do that go in massive, and it does fill you with that little pride a little bit more, and say, you know what, I'll push myself out of my comfort zone to have those conversations a little bit more, because I can see what these people are doing.
Yeah, I was going to say sort of the West Park, I was going to say sort of walk and talks, or however you kind of want to describe it. And you mentioned like about the parenting stuff, and I don't know if you sort of, I've been a dad for 4.5 years now, and like my sort of circle of dad friends compared to my wife's circle of kind of mum friends who they bounce off each other for support, both emotionally as much as anything else. It is stark and contrasting. It's really fascinating. And if we talk about sort of the Heads for Health for a minute, because I know kind of the project's very much kind of aimed at sort of well-being of adults. I mean, Rachel, what's sort of the impact been kind of yourselves in terms of, I guess, people engaging with it as much as anything else? Because it seems like it's really powerful and like got a lot of consistency in terms of how it's kind of grown in the last 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. So Head for Health it's a light touch intervention, really, which we do a bit of informational workshops, physical activity sessions in small groups, and the main aim is to improve mental well-being. So we hold it at Molineux, you know, it's somewhere different to come. You're not going to your GP, you're not going to a hospital or anything like that. And obviously for people who are Wolves fans or for people who just want to be nosy, it's quite nice to see the other side of Molineux. You're not in the stands, you're not in the kind of riffraff. You're in, you know, the nice posh boxes and having a bit of a nosy around. So the programme runs for about 8 weeks, but then there's additional things afterwards. So we have weekly sessions that people will just come in, have a chat. It might be talking about how they're feeling. It might be talking about the weather. It might be talking about the football results from the weekend. So it is literally whatever people want to talk about and get off their chest. There's that option. We do walk and talk sessions around West Park. We've got an allotment group. We've got a football session, all just linked with the Head for Health programme. It's open to all adults over the age of 18. I think the whole reason it was set up was it was originally just for men. And the whole reason, obviously, with I appreciate I'm saying this as a female, but men being less likely to talk, less likely to reach out for support. And obviously we know the power that football can have. We know the power that Wolves has within Wolverhampton as well. So trying to use that really as a vehicle to get people talking, break down some of those barriers. The project is now open to all adults over the age of 18. We've been able to kind of progress that with different funding and that sort of thing. So it's trying to show people that they're not alone. And I think sometimes it can be a really lonely place if you're struggling with your mental health, and hence why we run things in small groups. You know, we don't want it to be overwhelming, but actually there's a lot of strength that can be found when you know that actually there's another 5-6 people that are sitting in that room that know not necessarily exactly how you feel, but they can definitely empathize with you and they can share experiences and maybe what's worked for them and create that support network as well. And for some people, with their first point of call, they might not have accessed any other support before. They might not have ever maybe realised that they're struggling with their mental health. And then for other people, we're just kind of another piece of their jigsaw. So they might be accessing quite a lot of other support services, and we're just another one within that that's helping them along their kind of journey, really.
I think that's really interesting in terms of say where people are in kind of that process, because I can see it like being one of both kind of ways and sort of different support mechanisms that they access. It might be counselling in a bit more of a formal one-to-one capacity, but that opportunity to be around your peers, so to speak, and know you kind of in it together. And I was searching for some sort of stats on mental health, and particularly around men, and that's not to suggest that women don't struggle with mental health issues, but the fact that about works out about 29% are too embarrassed to speak about mental health. 1 in 5 still see it as a negative stigma. 2 out of 5 haven't even spoken to anyone about their mental health. And just having a mechanism like the Heads for Health for adults to access, and I think it's really powerful just to kind of knock those numbers down. And a lot of time it's like fairly like broad strokes in terms of what impacts people in terms of work pressures, finances, health, family and relationships. It doesn't it doesn't change whether you're the CEO of a business or whether you work on the shop floor. These are still kind of issues that face everyone, unfortunately.
You don't realise like the effect of like people when they talk, how much of like a weight off the shoulders that is. I know it's easy to say and stuff like that, but it's such a weight off the shoulders if people come forward, because it's like speaking from personal experience through like and people I know and things like that. It's hard. I think it's the first step as well. I think people struggle to really want to make that first step, and then they're doing it, such a weight off the shoulders and things like that. But obviously, what the foundation is doing is absolutely incredible. And you can see why people really take up the opportunities that are there, because it's so fantastic, isn't it? And the things that they're doing and supporting people the way it is, it's really like incredible.
Yeah. I guess the reason why, one of the reasons why Foundation has really kind of shot to prominence in the last sort of couple of weeks is Of course, we mentioned around Reaper. So for kind of those unaware, whether you weren't at the Luton match or you didn't kind of pick it up on social media, which wouldn't make you one of, I think it's about 9 million people watched it, saw it on Twitter or X, as well as on YouTube, as well as it getting coverage in, for pretty much all the major outlets. I think even the Luton striker Morris mentioned it the week after as well.
Yep.
I guess kind of make sure you to fill you in then. Reepa, who is a local musician, he's an ambassador for the foundation as well, stood outside Molineux before the match, holding with a scarf around his eyes, with a sign sort of saying, "Suicide and poor mental health are more common than we admit. Suicide is the biggest killer of men and women under 35 and of men under 30. If you need it, give me a hug or stop for a chat." And you watch the 10-minute video. Jaw-dropping is the only way I could kind of describe it.
If you can get through the 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think I got through it once fully, and even during that 10 minutes, I've not got through it with a dry set of eyes yet.
No.
Because one of the big things to take, it's so impactful, it's so powerful, but it's so simple. And the big thing that you take away is every time you watch it, you see an extra layer. So one of the things I've picked up the last time I watched it is how different every person is that approaches him. There's not just one demographic. There's not just one gender. There's not just one creed. There's not just one set of fans. There's Luton fans as well in there. And there's that many, it just appealed. There's just, people saw that outlet, and it was just so good for people to see that there and be able to act on it. Because for every one person that stopped, there were probably at least another 10 that wanted to stop but didn't.
Yeah.
So seeing that is there, they may then have gone away and think, actually, this is going to be the next step for me to actually, that it's there if I want to. There's no stigma around it. That was the indirect impact was impactful as the direct impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible, wasn't it? Like, I remember, I was on the bus back, and I was like, I got to about 6.5 minutes, I just couldn't watch anymore. I was like, I'm going to start crying here, because it's so inspiring, isn't it, to just watch, and like you say, it's the impact that it has. And what makes me so happy is people feel comfortable. Obviously, that they feel comfortable to be able to talk to people. They was able to talk to people. They saw him there. They wouldn't have known him, and it's like they feel comfortable talking. It's so incredible, the impact that people look at that and go, you know what, I feel comfortable to talk about this. And there's a lot of people in similar situations and things like that, but it'll encourage the people, the 7 million people who watched it on Twitter or whatever and seen it around the world. It'll encourage them to talk about it as well. It's just absolutely incredible to watch.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like you mentioned, Dean, there was a lot of people that came up to him that we couldn't include, and we could have made a half an hour long video, to be honest. But also, so obviously myself and a colleague were on site while we were filming, because obviously we didn't know how it was going to go, to be quite honest. Like, I was stressing, you don't know whether, is anyone actually going to walk up to him? Is it just going to be a complete flop? But as more and more people started to kind of go up, people find comfort in that, I guess, and go up. So, but talking to people after, there's so many stories that were kind of shared, but there were a lot of people that didn't even go up to Reepa, but you could see that they were affected just through reading the sign. So we had some quite kind of powerful conversations with individuals that didn't even kind of come up to chat to Reepa, really. But I completely agree that, like, the pride that you feel of these people have gone up, and this is like a 30-second, 1 minute interaction. They've not been stood with him necessarily for 5 minutes or so and opened up. The strength that must have taken for them to go up and just bear all, in a way, I think is really, really powerful. And like, they're the heroes of the whole piece. Do you know what I mean? That you wouldn't have that impact if they hadn't have had the courage to go and do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I look at it and go, I don't know if I'd have kind of approached him personally, because it's just not necessarily me. But I think if I'd have seen literally like people going up and doing it. I think that you're right. I think that would build your own confidence to kind of go, actually, you know what? I can say this to a complete stranger, but I'm not doing 100% at the moment. And having that, I guess, appreciation for knowing that actually, you know what, it's made me, I guess, reflect and know that there are things that I might want to change or improve upon. And 20 minutes before kickoff or whatever, it isn't necessarily that time for me, but I know actually, you know what, on Monday I'm gonna check out what programs the foundation are running, and you say kind of that, as Dean said, that indirectness that it's amazing how many people went up, but it's probably like your old 80-20 rule, isn't it? That the other 80%, 20% of people went to go and see him and did it, but it's probably 80% who still need capturing, who still kind of need that support, and hopefully they kind of do so in kind of the coming weeks, because it was such an impactful, like you don't know how things like that are going to turn out, do you? From your perspective, and the overwhelming, because it was overwhelming kind of positive response, both in person and online. You could see it on Twitter and the build up and stuff like that. People were posting about it, and I know kind of from feedback, from the club / foundation, more serious conversations, and got the referrals to more trained people as well, which is really amazing. For you can't go, well, what would have happened if they didn't have that opportunity on that Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, and I think the main thing that we wanted as well is just that awareness of, again, like there are people that will listen and there is help out there, and kind of, if it helps one person get the help that they need or reach out to someone for support, then that's the whole reason that we wanted to do it, really. And I think, Reepa's been incredible, to be honest, through the whole thing. Like, there's not many people that would be happy to stand there blindfolded in the lead up to a match day, and he was stood there for a good hour and a half, and yeah, so he's done brilliant. But yeah, the reaction has just been great. But I think fans need to take a lot of credit, because the amount of people you see them reaching out to each other or sharing a little bit of their story on socials, and that encourages the next person then. So I think it's just kind of that ripple effect then, and you never know the full impact really that it's going to have.
No, it was like the lad that said that he goes to the game on his own, and literally, he was in it. It was like a Twitter kind of war to try and find out who he was. Then as soon as we did, everyone's reaching out to him saying, "Look, I drink here before the game. Come and have a beer. Do this, do that." And it's for him. He will then, that impact he will have will be so. It could go one of two ways. It could be a little bit overwhelming, but at the same time, once he's reflected on it, he'll see, actually, I don't need to do this on my own. There's these people that I've got commonality with. They can speak my language. We can talk football. I may not know I may not have anything else in common, but we have the football club.
Yeah, no, I thought that was so heartwarming. Honestly, like I'd seen the edits as well a few times during the week. Like sitting at my desk crying at like 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning watching things. But like his is one of the ones that get to me every time, because it's just the power of asking if someone's okay. And this is the thing, you don't need any training, you don't need anything. All you need to be is a decent human being, really, and asking someone if they're okay, and asking twice if you can. But we can all do that. So, yeah.
And I think that was such like an amazing example, because it can get hard. It's going to sound silly. It gets harder to make friends when you're older. And particularly like when it comes to football. Like this is kind of, it's something that unites people together, and for one reason or another, I used to go to football with my dad, for example, and when he passed away, obviously you kind of don't have that person, you always don't have that anchor, that consistency, if that makes sense. And like you realise, and particularly like when things like we've got quite a lot of American listeners of the Fancast, and the amount of ones who'll say, "Oh, well, they don't know anyone, but they want the experience, and we'll just put something on Twitter." And Steve Koenig. Forgive me if I've mispronounced your name, Steve. Back in about 2013 or so. No, it would have been 2014. Like his first game, it was over. It was like, I'm going to watch Watford. You know, I've got a ticket for Wolves away at Watford. Does anyone know any chance? And he had loads of people sort of saying, yes, come sit by us, meet us at, this turnstile. We'll show you the ropes. And like, it's so easy to forget that. Yeah, it can feel hard to make friends and those new relationships as you get older, because you've had the same group of mates since you were knee high or whatever, or you do things with your family or your partners. But people genuinely, by and large, are really welcoming, and even like we've had ones at the Fancast before, and of ones who've kind of suffered that sort of some level of social anxiety about meeting up for pre-game or post-game drinks, and kind of gone, don't worry about it. This is, you don't need to. We are here. If you're getting a bit too overwhelmed by it, this is what we will do. And you realise that actually people by and large are genuinely brilliant. And when you sort of see it online afterwards, and the follow through with it as well, it's just genuinely heartwarming, particularly when life can be a bit crap, when you see genuine people doing genuinely nice things. It definitely kind of warms the soul.
And the other thing as well with that, just to go back to what Dean said about the lad who goes on his own, is I'm 90% sure if you look through his Twitter, he's a paramedic. And, like I know from experience, like, because my girlfriend's a paramedic, like some of the things she sees, and she doesn't really talk too much about her job. Like, you think he gets to the games on his own, the long shifts being a paramedic and things like that, and you think it's his release. I know it's probably like segueing a bit too, like football's his release, and he gives me now one. And, he probably doesn't get to talk to anyone about the things that he sees at work and that. And then, now he'll reach out to people. Well, hopefully that bit of release will be even better, because he'll go for a beer before the game and stuff like that. And it's the power of social media as well, just how incredible that is. I know it gets a lot of negativity, and I can understand why, but when it's used correctly, it's like absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm going to shamelessly steal your segue, Josh, to be honest, about football, because it was the next guy. I mean, it is the thing that unites us, ultimately, football. And apart from sometimes what happens on the pitch, predominantly, I've always found football as such a powerful mechanism for your kind of mental and emotional health in making those connections with people, particularly if you've got really rubbish stuff going on in your life.
Yeah, 100%. I think it, like Josh said, Josh used the word release, and that is part of it. It's kind of you have these kind of frustrations all week, but it's not just going to games. It's even playing football. I know we said about Friday, but like I didn't play football for about 10, 15 years. And then all of a sudden, Matt Guy, who's part of the Fancast, he put a picture on Twitter that said, he put a picture up where they were playing. I was like, I haven't played for years. And he was like, just come on down. Since then, I've played more or less every week with them. And that hour a week where you are more or less a kid again, where you run around. I play with Josh now on a Friday night, and I'm 35 running around like I'm 15 again. The end of those couple of hours, I feel like you feel refreshed.
I was going to say, you're running around like a 15-year-old with Josh. You're still like 2 years his senior then, aren't you?
100%. Literally, yeah, it's just one of them. Like, I can play in the Vets League now. It's that bad, but it's football as well, and kind of the stereotype around kind of your football fan per se. It is quite linked. Rachel mentioned it earlier around kind of the stereotypes about being a man, like what a man is, and the stereotypes we've come with that, where you're meant to suppress your emotions, be this strong kind of figure, and to have the conversations to open people up, and you open up yourself in the football environment, kind of makes it even more enhanced, because it's a very kind of stereotypical alpha kind of setting with these people, and you're trying to break those stigmas down. And kind of when it comes to myself, that kind of being a man and being man enough, that's kind of one of the biggest struggles that you have as a dad. Well, for me personally, and kind of being that provider and you constantly doubt yourself. Okay, am I enough for this? Am I enough for that? And there's a little plug here. There's a book called Man Enough by Justin Baldoni, who's an actor / director. He done a book about his kind of re-engineering his masculinity, and it's a really interesting book. So if anyone does want to kind of read it, let me know, and I can kind of send you in the right direction. But it is a decent read. I've read it a couple of times now. But that's one of the big takeaways around football is if you can have those kind of empowering conversations in this setting, there's no harder place to have them. So for us to have those conversations leading off the back of football makes it even more powerful to kind of like the Reepa thing. Like it's the last place you'd imagine that emotional outpouring to happen. If you were to stereotype and pick where would this happen, where would people engage in this kind of conversation, it wouldn't be next to a football stadium. So for it to have the impact it has just shows how good it was. And it also shows that how football is that release from the real world at times. And you can kind of move into kind of, you can feel more comfortable in ambiguity. Like there's people in the stand that just have anecdotal conversations with, oh, I've had this really shit week this week. And I know Norwich did a video that was really powerful as well around kind of suicide prevention. And that then it's like the people that you sit next to, like I sit in the North Bank upper last season. I'm probably going to move, but the people that the one guy sat next to me, like 60, 70-year-old, and was having conversations around kind of real world stuff and speaking to someone that's been there and done it and got that life experience. They'll give you the odd anecdotal kind of thing. Actually, that makes sense. I need to really think about that a little bit deeper, but it does I have that same conversation with Josh because of that big an age difference. Like kind of, I've been there, I've done it. But yeah, that's one of the positives around football is it does make that big difference and it brings different people together and you can bounce off each other. So it's a unstereotypical setting, but it's also the perfect setting at the same time because you have that big influx of totally different people that can speak to each other.
I find there's so many sort of really interesting tidbits in that. I think one I'm interested in sort of picking up on is like the five-a-side one in particular, because I think something like that, it just lowers your guard. And I think because it's in like such an it's in an uncompetitive environment. Like it's not in a league. It is 10 guys, 12 guys, and out for an hour, having a run around, burning off some energy. And do you just feel like if I said serene afterwards or calm, do you know what I mean? And like just that.
Depends how I've played.
Well, yeah. Well, by the sounds of it, Bagsman. Don't worry about that.
The week I scored a bicycle kick, I felt like God after I walked off the pitch. But the week after, I felt rubbish.
But I haven't played in about a year or so now after having our second for the logistics of it, which is just a challenge being a parent, shall we say. But when I play, and I've got a couple of kind of circles, in terms, some fan casts, some other walks of life, where just having that half an hour for an hour of match, and maybe have a drink afterwards, and it just the calmness I feel afterwards, and how good I feel genuinely the next day of just doing the exercise. And you don't have to kind of be a rocket science or have your sports science degree to know the link between physical and mental health, but just doing it with other people. And those little tidbits like, oh, how's your week been? How's this? How's that? And even those on, you sit next to it on a stand and you might not know their names, but just you pick up the little stories or you pick up that little tidbit that they've mentioned. It can be so I find it really interesting in terms of, particularly kind of playing, and whether you're not playing, if you're playing at a casual level, or, we've got Gully who's, playing Saturday League, I think still at, a half decent level for and stuff like that. The impact, I think, sort of still kind of playing and being around a group of people with similar interest is a really apparent one, Josh.
Oh, definitely. It's nice because like Fridays we have like Dean said, it's like me and my mates and stuff, and there's like 12 of us, and then we all go to the pub on a Saturday before the game and things like that. And it's nice that, like I say, it's that release that you get, and it's such valuable moments as well. You know, it's something that I think we all appreciate. Obviously, like like yourselves, it's if you've got families and things like that, like sometimes you can't do that, and there's such valuable moments at like our ages and stuff like that, because it's we're being young and things like that, and it's that relief that we get with seeing each other all the time, and there's such a good group of mates, and you feel like you can trust them to open up to them and tell them all, no, I have had a bad week and things like that, and it's a couple of my mates that they're through, like Dean, it's through social media and things like that. I keep going back to it, but it's through social media that type of friends, and it's that pair, and it's all over with that we're Wolves fans. I went to Lisbon 5 weeks ago. 2 of the lads are through like social media that I met them, and one lad it's through being a Wolves fan. You know what I mean? It's like things like that. It's like it's kind of mind blowing how football and social media, it all combines, and this is how this is what happens. These are the memories that you can create.
Yeah, and social media can be sort of such an interesting mechanism for that. Quite literally, that's how we all know each other really, right? Via Fancast indirectly, and I still joke about it with Dave Evans that the first time I did the podcast, I've been doing some and literally we'd only interacted on like Twitter DMs, and like he sent me his address or whatever to do a show. It was only like as I was walking up to his house, I was like, am I just meeting a stranger at this point? And now he came to my bloody wedding. Do you know what I mean? Like the kind of bonds you form, and I find it interesting that whether they're people who Josh, you might have known them either for years, or you've met them on social media, or Dean, who you've grown close to in like the last sort of 12 months, and he's now become a father figure to you.
No, and the group as well, not just me. It's the group as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to go off a tangent.
It's just so funny. It's so funny to just like, think about it. Like I say, when you break it down to the basics through football and social media, and like we did Dublin, we did West Brom, didn't we? You know what I mean? It's things like that.
Yeah.
You're just like, it's just like mind blowing to think. When you break it down, it's like, is that really like yourself, Rich? I think after we did our first podcast, you said, "Oh, we've been speaking for years, but it's through Twitter."
Yeah.
And when you break it, you're like, what? Where's that come from? It's like, well, yeah, that is the truth.
Yeah, like we'd literally been, we must have been following each other for about 5 odd years or something on Twitter or whatever. And like post, interact and all of that kind of stuff. It's similar with Dean, to be honest, as well. And whether you do these online or whatever, and you just go, oh well, yeah, just mates now. I could happily drop in a text after this and say, oh, do you mind if I borrow that book? Man up, and you'd be like, and I wouldn't hesitate if you actually be, oh yeah, sure, what's your address, Rich? Like, and it is just wild how, let's say, that spreads through, whether it's through football and, I'd seen something on TikTok of all things. And it was actually a woman in her 20s who's just started to play football. Like literally never played before. I think she follows in particular women's football, but she's decided she's gonna join a women's team after literally never playing before. And I was just like, part of me kind of couldn't mentally get it when she was sort of I need to learn how to dribble, because if you've played football in your formative years, you can't. It's just something almost that comes a bit instinctual after a bit. But I was like, I stepped back. I was like, that's fucking amazing that she's doing that. But she's put in her early mid-20s. It's just going, yeah, no, I'm doing it now. And she's saying like, she joined a team. They're all really supportive and helping her learn how to play and all of this. And I think the last one I saw, it's like, what did she say? She was like, I'm hoping to get enough confidence to play in a game soon. And I was
incredible, isn't it? Absolutely incredible to think that.
And,
How does social
I
media
think-
impact the foundation, Rachel? I'm asking you a question now. Sorry,
It's
because
all
I'm just interested
Yeah.
to know how that kind of, because there's some people that'd be more willing to reach out via the written form that social media is, rather than kind of approaching someone. What kind of impact does it have?
Yeah, obviously we use socials obviously quite a bit to make people aware of what we do, because there's still a lot of people that don't know who we are, what we do, what they can access that they might benefit from. So we obviously try and use socials and things like the Reepa video, if we've got player visits, that sort of stuff, to try and push the message of what we do and make people aware. So, but then, like you said, from that side, you get people reaching out, whether that's through DMs, whether it's on comments on things, in the hope that then obviously we can then support them, I guess. So it's a very powerful tool that we've got, obviously linking in with the main social channels as well with the club when we can. Then again, that just increases our reach even further, really. I think from a personal perspective, I agree with what you guys have said around social media, because like I moved away from home, quite like, as you can tell, my accent is a little bit different to yours. So I moved down to sunny Wolverhampton a good 9, nearly 10 years ago now. But social media is my connection back to friends, family that don't live around here, friends that you went to uni with that you're now dotted all over the country, making new friends. Like social media, I think, can be very, very positive. I couldn't do probably what you guys do on a regular basis, or when you think of people that tend to get a lot of negative criticism from trolls and everything on social media. I personally couldn't deal with that, and I take my hat off to any of you guys that do. But yeah, I think if it's used correctly, it can be really positive.
Yeah, I was for trolls. It's an interesting one in terms of, I guess, negativity you experience online, whether it's kind of directly to you or to people you know. And there's, I guess, fairly notable fans who suffer from. I was going to say it's not trolling; it's racism, it's abuse.
Full-on abuse.
Yeah,
Abuse
like
that should not be happening in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that kind of should go without saying in a way, but it's interesting. Like me and Matt Cooper, and I think Dave Haspardy have spoken with across like different podcasts, and like I remember Dave Haspardy gets it a lot in terms of kind of he screenshotted one the other day, and it's just wild how sort of some people just sort of target you for quite literally having a different opinion to yourself about football. And that's, to be honest, how I've ended up rationalizing it after about 10 plus years doing it. For I had one the other week, and I don't tweet as much as I used to, chiefly because my thought process is that I just don't reply to people. I will use it, I'll put my opinion out there, and if it was about Morgan Gibbs White was probably my last actual tweet, it feels like, where I sort of said, it's a shame that the relationship between him and Wolves has kind of got to the level where there is this level of animosity from him to the club and the fans to him, and it made its way over to Nottingham Forest Twitter, and I was getting dogs abuse from them, and I was like,
it's just mad, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm like, well, why? Who has the? I don't have the emotional energy to like.
That's spot on. That is like I as you know, I'm like a serial tweeter, but if someone like I can't, I'll be honest, I've never really suffered abuse or anything like that. Obviously, you get a few like piss takers and stuff, but that's the way social media is. I think it's not for the faint-hearted, and I don't think I could jump if I was to jump on Twitter now. I don't think I could do that. I think I'd be like, this is. It's a tribalism, and it's very tribalistic on there. It's almost like a war out there sometimes. But because I've like been on there that long, you just get, like I just tweet my opinion out, and then that's it. A few people might go, oh, that's not right. If could be bothered to, I'll put something back. But then, like you say, it's the energy. I don't know. People constantly have this energy to like
argue,
abuse people, stuff like that as well. Like, how do you? Look, I think there was a tweet last week something about Kilman, and there's people underneath the tweet with him tagged in it, like giving him abuse for what's happened 10 seasons. I'm like, you're hating him because of he's a defender in a Wolves team that's been poor, and because he wears a bit of material on his arm, and you're getting pressed over that and having to give it to him, and he's tagged in it as well. And players will see this, the public obviously not only that much, but they will see this and they will know. And you just think, why? What do you benefit by that? I've never understood it.
Yeah, I ultimately, you're never going to win an argument online.
No.
Like, have you ever tweeted something and someone's replied, you're giving your opinion, say it's about Max Kilman. He's been doing rounds a lot recently. Someone's come back and says, no, you're wrong. No, literally, in the history of the internet, someone's not have ever gone, actually, you know what? I have changed my mind on this opinion. My viewers chat, it doesn't really happen. And when you kind of see these like 10, 15 threads of, I used to be that person like a decade ago, sort of thing, and would happily, pick apart their, what they were saying. And I remember my wife, she was just like, "What are you doing with your evening?"
It's so true, and you link it back to the mental health. Like someone puts an opinion on Twitter, you don't know what they're going through away from their phone. You don't know what they're going through away from. So if someone, you don't know what they're dealing with in the real world. So if you want to think and just start throwing vitriol around, just be a bit mindful around kind of what that person could be going through. But a lot of the time, the people that throw the vitriol around are the faceless accounts that they've got no person behind them, and like it's just you put an opinion out there. Like for years, I've had my account's been locked. I've only unlocked it recently for the charity game because I want to push that. And you get the odd message back saying you're full of shit. Yeah, right, fine. But the power of the padlock puts you in control. I can control who follows me. I control who doesn't. I know everyone on there. I've only got about 300. That's enough for me. I don't want any more. Because I only want to speak to people that I will have that conversation with. In like you wouldn't put yourself in an auditorium and let people throw abuse at you. So why do it on social media? That's the analogy I always use. You wouldn't just throw an opinion out and just let people you don't know just shout abuse. It wouldn't happen. So on social media, it's about having that control. That's what I find works for me, is to have that control. And I did find, like, linking it back to the Fancast, like my first few episodes, I did find myself every other day going on the comments. Has anyone had any issue with anything I've said? But then you think about it, actually, it's not that deep. I'm just giving my opinion about a football game. Why am I bothered about what other people think? But when you're new to it and you're moving into that world a little bit, it is a bit like, okay, I need to...
You're a little bit exposed, aren't you?
Yeah, you put yourself out your comfort zone to speak openly. Like Rachel said that she wouldn't want to do it, and I was a little bit apprehensive to begin with. But then you think you've got a circle of... There's never any more than kind of 2 or 3 people on here. I know the people I'm going to be speaking with. So it's kind of... You feel that comfort in it a little bit.
Yeah, and to be fair, I still look at the YouTube comments that come through, and partly it's because I put the show up, and sometimes I have to wade through a bit of a bad criticism and work out what where's it coming from, if you know what I mean, and is it just sort of sounding off because they didn't like, and it's difficult. It's difficult from that, but ultimately I can't go, well, creating the content if anyone thinks they can improve it. If not, I'm happy with it, and all of that kind of thing. Sometimes just tell them where to go, to be honest. But it's the impact it can have on your mental health sometimes, and particularly, it's usually when Wolves are doing badly, and that's where it kind of all splits. There's things outside of your control, really. I guess kind of a question I kind of had for you guys was in terms of the impact of, mental health, particularly if you are struggling really, and what that kind of looks like for you. Because I know when my mental health's not great, I'm an absolute nightmare to be around. I am snappy and stressful, and that's usually when I realise, actually, I need to check myself, so to speak. And there's little things like even physically, I know that it's gonna sound really weird, but it's my facial hair. That like at this point now, it's all fine, but like I'll know that if I've not neatened and tidied in about a week's time, that, you know, my wife now knows that actually I'm not taking care of myself at that point. And it's almost like this manifestation, my facial hair for me. It's like you can see, oh, actually, no, it's normal. And then all of a sudden, it's like, actually, you've gone from not shaving to, you know, attempt to grow a beard to you're just not looking after yourself. I was curious to sort of see if you kind of, how, if any ways, kind of you guys were impacted by, I say, sort of downside of mental health.
I've been quite lucky. I've never really suffered majorly. Like I said earlier, the demons that tend to get me is stuff like when it comes to my family and not feeling like I am providing enough. I have to travel a lot for work, so with that comes a fair bit of guilt, as in like you're missing this, you're missing that. But like I'm lucky that I have that support around me, and that my wife knows I'm a pain in the arse anyway at the best of times, whether it's kind of, but she's always like the communication is massive, and that tends to be the trigger. If something's going on and I'm stressed or I'm struggling in any way, my communication kind of stops. Okay, no, I tend to kind of be a bit more kind of reclusive in kind of the way I am. So if you find my tweet frequency drops, because I'm like Josh, I'm quite serial with tweeting and liking and commenting to people. So if that tends to be a trigger, is kind of actually I've had enough now. I need a bit of a time out kind of thing. That tends to be like what I do, but that's in the real world as well. So I'll kind of shut off a little bit. But that tends to be banged out of me pretty quickly. By the better half, she gets on it. She knows what my triggers are, and she kind of has that conversation. And she kind of, I've said it already, but she's amazing for me and the support that she gives. But it's the same way. Like we have that supportive kind of relationships around you are so important for all angles, kind of thing. And it's building that network of people. If you've got your network sorted, you don't tend to struggle as much, I find, because you can reach out to all the different angles, and stuff like the foundation will be integral in that for certain people, as having that someone to talk to and being able to speak openly and honestly about certain things.
As like obviously like Rich and Dean, you know, like back end of last year and early part of this year, like what happened with Torture and stuff like this, you know, it was, I had to like take a break from the fan cast and things because, you know, it's a bit of a like tough time with things at home and stuff like that as well. And it's but I feel so lucky to say, like, it's the people that I'm surrounded by, I'm like, so incredible. And I feel so like I could reach out to anyone. You know, I'm so lucky that I've got such great people around me, like yourselves. You know, I'm ever so thankful. I'll never be able to like express enough thank yous for like the things that you do for me and like the other people do for me and stuff like that. And it's like I say, it's the people that you surround yourself with. And like start of the year, it was tough, it was dark, and it felt like it was never gonna get better. And I'm like, think I'm quite a happy person, you know, I'm like to smile and stuff like that. And then at the start of the year, it felt like there was no point in smiling at times. It was like every day it felt like a different blow, or it felt like someone else was going to go against me or whatever. But you know, time, support, talking, it's all, you know, I'd like to think luckily now that it's kind of come through that a little bit. But it's like I say, it's that talking and things like that. I'm just ever so thankful to the people that have supported me in that, especially at the start of the year, because of how tough it was. And like I say, it was like dagger after dagger. It felt like it was never going to end. And then you do come through times of healer, and you sometimes it's that chance to reassess things. You know, you get that chance to process and go, oh, no, maybe it isn't all bad. And like, you know, and I think that's kind of what happened. It's come through that other side and that time and that process of healing. And I feel so much better about it now.
That's a really beautiful thing to hear, Josh. And you're right, but I guess the benefit of you being one of the younger guys in the group is that ultimately most of us have gone through similar stuff. And I really struggled when I was younger. So I mentioned about my dad. My dad passed away when I was 21. And I really struggled still do. But actually, like, no one had kind of gone through anything like that. Whereas, like, now, you know, whether it's with my mum currently, and I've kind of got that resilience for myself personally, a bit more that I kind of know where I'm at a bit more with certain things with your family, or actually, I've got friends who have kind of having to go through sort of similar things with their parents suffering from illness, and actually, like, I can be that support that I didn't necessarily kind of have myself in a way, and knowing kind of you, Josh, as a person, like, I know that you're so kind of enthusiastic about life most of the time, but if any of your mates are going through something in like a couple of years' time, that you'll know
the process and like the things to
Yeah,
say. Sometimes like I said, I was talking to my mum basically today, and sometimes like you don't when people say like time and things like that, a lot of my age, you don't want to hear that. You want the solution to be in
yeah,
5 minutes time, not. And like I said like obviously in June now, like January stuff like that, it's like time is a healer and it takes its time to resonate with you. And like I say, you might not want to hear that, but it's the truth. It does take time. And like I say, I understand now what to say to people if they was to come to me and go, I was struggling with this, any guidance. And I'd feel like I'd be able to try my very best to be able to offer that from like past experiences.
yeah. I find it's sometimes you kind of have to go through the crap, don't you? To
Yeah.
give you that bit of perspective, and particularly when it comes to parenthood. Like, I mean, I had again being a man of firsts apparently in my friendship group. Like, I had kids before a lot of my friends have. So I was kind of had to like sort of figure it out by myself without that network. But now it's kind of got to a point where, a few of my other mates are, either had babies or expecting them. I get that opportunity to sort of, say, or, relatives as well. My brother-in-law, their kid, they had their first by around the time we were having our second, and actually just be able, sort of say, like, you don't have to, you don't worry, don't stress. Kind of, we've done this. I mean, the second child's always feral anyway. But it's I say it as a second child, but no, it's so interesting that you can have these kind of negative impacts. I know for me, like, if I've gone through something big, that when things are going fine, it's fine. When I get the slight inconvenience, like, my outlook mood just goes dum. So I had one quite recently, where my mum's kind of got an illness at the moment. It's kind of sprung back, and we're chatting at about 10 o'clock at night about it, and kind of talked through it. Fine. Went to bed. Fine. Woke up the next day, and I work in a sales position, and a deal had fallen through like 11th hour. I'm not joking. I was in my house by myself. I had a strop. I basically, bearing in mind I live in a house of children's toys, I was effectively throwing toys out of a pram at one point, and it was only afterwards I kind of went, I've done this role for enough. I've been in sales for long enough. I don't think the deal was the issue there, was it? And it took me, it took me a couple of days to realise it, but it's sometimes situations like that I think, when we talked about social media, you might have it in football when you're playing sometimes, and someone puts in a silly tackle or whatever, and it's not that situation that's impacted them, and it can be really difficult to kind of, if someone's said something online or mouthed off, and kind of actually, maybe there's something else going on with them, and trying to help them talk through it so it doesn't. I was fortunate. I had my sulk in my house by myself for 25, for half an hour or whatever. But other people might have that in a bit more of a public setting if you're not careful. And so you never quite know what's happening behind closed doors, I guess. I was going to say, in terms of, I guess, sort of just sort of, I guess, wrap up as much as anything else. We've talked about reaching out to friends and having those kind of support networks. Is there anything for any of you three that you find really beneficial in terms of sort of support mechanisms around mental health. I know lots of organisations do things about mindfulness, for example.
Yeah. I think it's really like what we've said. It's that community. For me personally, it's that communication. It's talking to people, and it's like the physical exercise. We've said that is done, but going out for a walk is so impactful sometimes as well. If you do need to kind of get that little bit of a break and switch off a little bit and get that little be with your own head, it's very impactful to do that. You know, team sports. We've already said they're great because you've got that camaraderie that comes with it and those conversations that can have off the back of it. But ultimately, the support's there if you want it. So you look at people like Rachel, the work that they do, and if you need it, like all three of us would take your call, but we're not qualified to deal with it. We'll try our best, and we'll reply to that message. But someone like the foundation, they're experts in it. They are the subject matter experts in it. So if you are struggling, I would just don't be scared to take that first step. It'd be kind of my final message.
Yeah, totally echo what Dean said. It's to a T. Like I say, it can be hard to take that first step, but there's always people out there, and you never know what you might find along with that. You know, friendships or people are going through the same thing, or just some people might make you think, you know what, maybe it's not as bad as it feels. Like I say, as I said earlier on, it's that weight off your shoulders, that sometimes that you just need to take.
Yeah. And something that's kind of always not impacted me, and I think one of the reasons why a lot of people don't reach out is because, they might be struggling, but don't necessarily think don't want to have a label on it sometimes. So, like, you might find work stressful, but I'm not stressed, or I'm a bit worried about something, but I don't suffer from anxiety. So like, I did a mental health awareness course a couple of years ago, and I managed to dig out a sort of a slide from it, and it's kind of this kind of continuum between mental health and mental illness, and that most people kind of sit in the top right. You've got good mental health and no or low mental illness, and it's kind of like we all are impacted by mental health, but not necessarily everyone is impacted by a defined mental illness from a medical professional. And it kind of gave me like a real level of clarity. Like, I don't suffer from depression or anything like that, but I have moments where I'm, really stressed, really highly anxious and things like that. And kind of having like understanding that it's not just it's not binary, but actually, it's such a movable and fluid thing, your mental health. And actually, you can speak to counsellors, or we've got pay care at our work, and you've got counselling lines through that, and just to have 20 minutes on the phone with someone, it might not solve your problems, but it at least might halve them, hopefully.
Yeah,
I think it is. It's talking to someone, isn't it? Like whether it's your mate, whether it's someone on the foot. Like if you've got counselling support services, great. Samaritans are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're free to call, and they'll always listen. So if you don't feel like you've got anyone, everyone can call the Samaritans. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's one of the links that I think I've put in the description of the show, and it's also scrolling. If you are watching on YouTube as well, it should be scrolling across the bottom, as well as along with the Wolves Foundation link to check out some of the projects they're doing, because it's not just on mental health. They're doing fantastic work on. There are so many sort of other different areas. I think it's about 50 live projects you've got going on, or if I completely
it's about there. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say without checking my work diary, but so go check out Foundation, some of the work that they're doing. Of course, you've got the NHS, you've got your GPs, you've got charity organisations like Mind as well, and as kind of, I guess, sort of rounding up as well. If you haven't already, please do check out our charity football match that we've got going on Friday. Really proud to be sponsored by Steelway and the Sports Shop and Custom Clothes as well, and Boston Coffee as well as supporting as well. So some fantastic local businesses as well. But again, if you're able to donate, the link's in the description as well. That about wraps it up for today. Dean, Josh, Rachel, thank you so much for opening up and talking about it this evening.
No problem. One thing I will add, if you do want to come and share abuse at us on Friday, you can still get tickets.
Yes.
So drop the
So
fantastic
it doesn't have to just be online. We will take abuse in person. I mean, I'm happy for that. Could have been a great money stream to do like a fan cast.
Only if you donate. I was going to say,
exactly.
If you
that's it.
donate, then they can shout abuse. So.
Yeah, you know
100%.
what? I'll happily get called if we name them and do some for a bit of charity. That's fine. I get it done for free. So
when Josh manages to get booked in a charity game again,
Not this year.
go for a red. Go for a red. That's all I'm
I don't think
saying.
the ref could if he wanted to.
Man, it's just start a scrap. Just go out swinging.
yeah.
That's be fine. But yeah, keep up to date at Wolves Fancast for all things Wolves related. I will put out a link to some of our other episodes as well for you to kind of check out as well if you're interested in hearing some other perspectives on mental health. But until next time, it's goodbye from Rachel, and thank you so much for coming on, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's goodbye from Josh.
Yeah, like I say, thank you. Obviously, thank you to Rachel, and thank you for the Fancast again for the opportunity on Friday. And like I said earlier, thank you to especially Dean and Rick for some of the things you've done for me over the past 6 or 7 months. I really appreciate it.
It's goodbye from Dean because I might cry.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Thanks, you lads. Been a good chat. Enjoyed it. And if you do want to reach out to us, just message me.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think the Fancast DMs are open. I'm pretty sure everyone else on here are as well. And again, that's where we are. And I guess my final thing before we wrap up is just to make sure you remember the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason. We'll see you next time, everyone.